I wanted to first kind of introduce myself. 2 years ago, I graduated from UC Davis as an anthropology major, and about 4 years ago, I was in the same seats that you guys are in today. And so today, I stand here, and I'm actually a recruiter at Facebook. What I do is I recruit for Facebook's data centers, and basically every day I talk to a lot of engineers, a lot of technical folks, and try to get them to work for Facebook. And so as a recruiter, not only am I able to interview people on a daily basis, but I think something that's pretty cool is that I actually get to see the other side of the equation. So back then when I used to interview for jobs, I was so terrified of the interview process. I always think about, what my interviewers think about me, and I'm scared if I said the wrong thing, they would immediately nix me out of the process. And so it really is a nice learning experience for me to be able to understand, what kind of conversation really goes on behind, the scene, and what our hiring managers really want when they are interviewing candidates. So with that said, a lot of friends and a lot of family members, they often come to me when they're preparing for a job interview, and they always ask me, how do I prepare for an interview? How do I, what kind of questions do you think they're going to ask me? And just to, first off, to make things clear, there's no exact formula for you to ace an interview. There's no way for you to exactly know what questions your interviewers are going to ask you. But if there is an advice that I would give, and definitely this is probably the only advice that I would ever give, is you need to be able to tell stories. And what I mean by that is, if you take a couple minutes to think about, the common interview questions that you've heard of. So, for example, tell me about the biggest challenge that you've had to come across. Tell me about a time when you had to work with difficult customers. Tell me about a time when you had to deliver bad news to your boss. All of these questions, we call it situational scenario questions. They all revolve around, wanting to know your story. So as interviewers, we want to know how you are as an employee. How do you deal with situations? How do you deal with adversity? How do you overcome obstacles? And so the advice that I always give my friends and my family is that always think of at least 3 to 5 different stories going into an interview. And always think of examples that would highlight your accomplishments and also highlight your skills and your personality and your traits. So that, and also get good at telling these stories. Be able to think on your feet, and no matter what the interviewer throws at you, so whatever question they decide to throw at you, think of, be able to pick out a specific story that relates to this question and kind of tweak it so that it answers the question itself. So, with that said, I wanted to take some time today to go over a few interview questions that I commonly ask people, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you some of the stories that I would use. So, first question is, tell me about a time when you had to jump into a project without having a clear idea on how to execute it. So I definitely asked this before in an interview. So the way that I would like to answer this question is, when I first joined Alpha Kappa Psi, I was given the opportunity to present in front of Microsoft representatives. And basically what we had to do was, we had 4 days to come up with a marketing plan and a business proposal and present to them how do we market the Windows Phone. And up to that point, I think for myself, I had never had a chance to speak in front of people, let alone put together a business plan. And so what I did was I worked with 12 other members of Alpha Kappa Psi, and what we did is we sat in a room and we looked at a chalkboard and we started brainstorming. And so one person would throw out an idea and we'll write it down on the chalkboard, and another person would jump in and either piggyback off of that idea or come up with another idea all itself. And so this back and forth, we went back and forth for about a couple of hours, and we finally decided on what we're going to do for this project. And basically we ended up splitting into 4 groups, each group focusing on their own market area, and we all did our own research. And we all came together and formed a business proposal. And on the side, we kind of did a little extra credit. We did a little marketing video that was a little witty and a little together and we practiced every single day. So we did numerous amounts of mock presentations, and we spent a lot of nights, thinking of possible questions that these representatives are going to ask us. And so on the day of the presentation, we were able to deliver our proposal. And at the same time, we had a long Q&A session with these Microsoft representatives. And these questions were definitely hard, but it gave us the opportunity to really learn about, what are the things that we did well and what are the things that we could work on. And from this experience, not only did we get praised by the Microsoft representatives, but we were offered letters of recommendations at the end for future use. So this story, I really like it because it does demonstrate my ability to collaborate with a lot of different team members, and it also allows me to, show how I choose to think outside of the box, and also being able to plan and execute something from idea to end. And so this is the type of, stories and type of skills and abilities that interviewers look for when they're asking you questions like this. So let's go on to another example. So another example question is, tell me about a time when you knew you weren't going to make a deadline. So before I answer this question, I just wanted to explain to you what exactly the interviewers were looking for. So when they're asking you questions like this, it's not because they want you to tell them some magnificent story where you picked up something and you just solved the problem right away. They understand that no matter how much you plan something, how well thought out you were and how detail oriented you were, things are about to go wrong. And this happens all the time in the workforce. And for the most part, what they want to know is, how are you going to be able to handle that situation? How are you going to react towards stress? And so my story is, during my first year at Alpha Kappa Psi, I took on the position of Brotherhood Chair. And basically, the Brotherhood Chair is the person who is responsible for creating the events and the opportunities for all of the brothers to bond. And from there, at the end of the year, I was responsible for coordinating a holiday banquet for about 100 people or so. And so I was able to, work with a lot of different vendors, work with caterers, DJs, photographers, and all this planning process took about 2 months or so. But definitely it was very fun because I personally want to be a wedding planner on the side, so I definitely learned a lot from it. But everything was planned out until the day of. All I needed to do was to print out the programs for the night and just bring it to the venue and set everything up. However, when I got to Office Max, that was when I realized that the program that they used to print out these pamphlets, it didn't. It wasn't compatible to the file that I used to make the program. And so there was no way for me to print it out unless I reformatted everything. And at that time, there was only 2 hours left until the event started. So for me, I knew I wasn't able to make this deadline. And so I did what I had to do, and I called the brothers of Alpha Kappa Psi and see who was available to help me. And so about 4 or 5 of them rushed to my rescue, and we all divvied up the work. 2 of us worked on reformatting the program, and then the rest of us divvied up how to compile the printouts and how to staple it and put it all together. And so within an hour, we were able to get this all done, and I was off to the venue, and I was able to set up everything. The programs were great, and the guests didn't even notice that anything happened. And so from this story, I wanted to let you know that all of the stories that I'm telling you tonight, it's actually true. But I wanted to kind of highlight the fact that each of this story, I really did rely a lot on my brothers of Alpha Kappa Psi. A lot of the stories that I have created throughout my college career was done because I had the support system from my brothers. I do have one more question that I want to talk to you guys about, and this question is actually one of my most loved yet most hated questions during an interview, and that question is, why do you want to work here? So this question almost sounds cliche because every company would ask you this question no matter what kind of position you're going to interview for. And I wanted to kind of explain to you why we want to ask candidates this question. And the reason is not because I want to hear about how awesome Facebook is. It's not because I want to hear about how cool you think Facebook is, how many people you interact with who uses Facebook. That's not what I want to hear. What I want to know is whether or not you would actually be happy working here. Would you really wake up every day and be willing to come to work and put in your 100%? And that's why I asked this question. It's because I want to know what you value in a job opportunity and whether or not those values align with the values of the company. And so with my story, actually a lot of people don't know this about me, but I wanted to kind of change this question a little bit to kind of match today's theme and be a little bit more relevant to tonight. So I'm going to change this question to why did I want to join Alpha Kappa Psi? And as I mentioned, not many people know this about me, but I used to be a college dropout. So the first year I went to college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and at that time I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I recently just graduated high school, and college just seemed like the reasonable next step for me. And so without doing any research, without visiting any campuses, I decided to go to Cal Poly because it just sounded like it was a good school. And it didn't take me too long for me to realize that when it comes to Cal Poly, diversity isn't really their strong suit. And for me, this is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart because I grew up in the Bay Area, and as a woman growing up in the Bay Area, you are offered so many opportunities to interact with the diversity in the Bay Area. You're able to be, express yourself the way you want to and really be comfortable in your own skin. But that wasn't the case when it came to Cal Poly, and it didn't take me too long to realize that I was irrelevant in this student environment. I wasn't able to make friends. I couldn't relate to anybody. And so I went from honor students in high school, and quickly, within the first quarter, I went into academic probation. And then soon after, at the end of the year, I dropped out. And so from there, I decided to take a break from school, and I started working. I started working at Wells Fargo, where I got to meet a lot of new people, but all of them were generally about 5 to 6 years older than me. And I think this experience really did kind of start my professional career, I guess my professionalism and also my experience in the workforce. And so for me, I was more comfortable dealing with older, more mature people, people who knew what they wanted to do in life, and people who knew what they want to do with their careers. And so 4 years ago, when I started school again here at UC Davis, I had my doubts. I didn't think that I would be able to find that kind of environment here. I sat in those seats that you guys are sitting in today, and I had my doubts, and I thought that maybe this isn't going to be the people that I want to associate myself with. It's going to be like Cal Poly all over again. But after listening to every one of them talk, after interacting with each of the active brothers at that night, I realized that these people are so way beyond, they're so much more mature than they are at their age. And so a lot of them are even more experienced in terms of working. A lot of them were already interning at places like Google, Apple, and Intel. And for me, I felt like this is definitely the place that I want to be, and this is definitely the people that I want to surround myself with. And so I think tonight, before I leave, I wanted to kind of give you guys a word of advice. So what I want you guys to think about is how you're going to start creating your own stories. Because you only have 4 years in college, and right after that, you're going to start applying for jobs. And you're going to need these stories to be able to interview. And so I think as far as Alpha Kappa Psi will not help you find a job, and that's a fact. What it will give you is an opportunity to create your own stories. And I think, as you guys have heard tonight, it definitely has helped me create my own stories. And so I think for you, it's whether or not you want to start creating the stories here, or if you want to create it somewhere else. Thank you so much.